Oh, the biggest surprise. The funny thing is that throughout Coroner, we're not, we don't have like one big surprise at the end. We're sort of this spastic human show because we have, it's everyday trials and tribulations. We always have issues every day. There is one character that I think people are going to go, I know who that is, and then by the end be like, oh, what? There's a nice little twist at the end. But I think the most surprising thing is just the evolution of each character and seeing more and more of that humanity within each one. I went and saw a real autopsy. Yeah, it's funny because when I play a cop, I go on a ride along, or if I'm playing an FBI agent or an artist or whatever it is, I go and I do the job for a day, or I talk to the person that's in that field. And so I spoke to several coroners. I spoke to an amazing Canadian woman in Toronto where the show's shot, who actually was called Jennifer and my character's name Jenny. So I was like, do you see black dogs? Like, what's going on here? It was very close. I talked to M.R. Hall, who was the author of the original book series. I studied the books. But yeah, all of it together kind of brings Jenny's life to screen in sort of this multifaceted way, which I love. But a lot of research, I talked to a lot of people with anxiety or mental illness to see how they feel that they've been represented or misrepresented on television. All of that's really important to me because then once I'm on screen, I can relax and I can pull from all of those experiences and all of that research and have an authentic reaction to the moment. Yes, I've heard Spanish, I've heard Russian, I've heard German the other day, French. It's so interesting. It's so funny because it's not, obviously it's not my voice. But I really like my voice in Spanish. Yes, there's some that I'm like, what? And then there's some that I'm like, ooh, I should speak Spanish. I think she's in the process of changing. I think season 1 was all about finding out the truth, which I don't think she necessarily was ready for. I think in realizing the consequence of her actions at a very, very young child, the first thing she does is blame herself and feel fear. Whereas when you're a child, you push your siblings or you push people all the time. It just happened to be that Jenny pushed her sister next to a set of stairs. And there was it was a much bigger consequence for that because her sister died. She wasn't trying to kill her sister. She was trying to just push her away from her, as kids do. And I don't think she's fully absorbed that yet. I think she still doesn't know how to place that truth within her because it's too traumatic. So within the first season, she's given the ultimate truth, which she wasn't inevitably searching for. She's always looking for the truth for someone else, for a case, for a family, for a death. And by doing so, she can kind of avoid her own truths, to avoid her own traumas, which is interesting, kind of the paradox between the two, where Jenny really wants to always solve everything for everyone else, but she doesn't really want to solve her own traumas. So I feel like between the first season and the second season, you start to see her, the first she sort of suppresses and ignores that trauma and that realization. So for her, she starts to medicate a little stronger and not in the way that she should be. She's using her medication to suppress her emotions rather than to control her anxiety. And so that obviously has to get switched up by her psychiatrist. So she then goes on a whole new journey, and switching up medication for anyone can be very volatile. And so you see Jenny sort of struggle with what the new medication does to her body and her mind. And so you go on this new journey with her where everything's evolving, her relationship with her father, her boyfriend, her son, and with herself. And the underpinning of that is the new medication and also the new information on who and what actually happened with her sister. capable. I think that's one of the things that I've always found so intriguing about her, is that we don't show mental illness in a way that it debilitates the person or makes them crazy or insane. No, we all have mental illness in some capacity. It just depends on what part of our life we're in or what we're currently dealing with. I know when my personal father was ill, I could say that I had mental illness at that time. I was very depressed. I had a lot of anxiety around him being so ill. And so you can still compartmentalize it though. I remember when my father had to have open heart surgery and I had to work. And I remember walking in the room and doing my job and walking off set and bawling. But we're all capable of that. You know, we're able to compartmentalize, and yet we don't show that on television because we feel like it's too much of a switch or people won't be able to follow it. And I was like, no, that's humanity. That's what we're actually capable of doing. So as humans, we can follow that, and we need to show that, so we don't just typecast one thing as one thing. So for me, it's interesting to see this mental illness that she goes throughout the season, but it doesn't. Yes, it can debilitate her for a moment. Yes, she can be on the floor or she can feel it and certain things are heightened, but she's still a capable mother. She's still a capable girlfriend. She's still a capable coroner. You'll see a bit of the medication messes with her a bit, but that's the truth. That's what can happen when you switch medications, and she gets back in alignment. So it's an interesting underpinning, and that's the reason why I took the character. It was for the character work, and that I could really dive into that humanity of her, that I wasn't a coroner who happened to be a human. I was a human who happened to be a coroner. It was intense. It was really intense. I remember reading it and I was like, this is gonna be a lot, especially because we have an amazing executive producer and director, Adrian. And Adrian Mitchell is visually genius. Like, she just has these amazing shots that she does, and you're like, okay, tell me what to do, because I know you're trying to make the visuals another character within the story. And I just remember her screaming, "More smoke!" And I'm like, okay, let's go, Adrian. And just like, I was blowing out black for days, like just smoke everywhere. I was losing where the camera was. It was, it was very, very intense, but it was really important because in the beginning of that scene, or you see me tackle the character Kelly. And that's actually the beginning point of her trauma for the season, because the last time she was physical and angry was with her sister. And that's when her sister died. And so you see her push Kelly down, and then you see the reaction, which isn't normal to the situation. It's a trigger for her. And so that trigger point of her being physical to this woman kind of sets her on a tailspin for the whole season. And so it's those little things that if you know to look for them, you're like, well, that wasn't a normal reaction. And you're like, no, that's a personal reaction. That's because I'm personally going through something. So we like to kind of pepper in those little personal experiences where we all have that when we come into contact with people. I might say something and you could have a completely different reaction than I'm expecting because it's personal to you. So that fire really enhanced everything for us. It made it very real, and yeah, just so much black. it was an exhausting day, but a beautiful day to shoot.
Almost like a fire.
Yes. Oh yeah. And there's smoke machines, and then they have fans, and they're wafting it in your face. And it would almost be better if it was. It wouldn't health-wise if it was real smoke. But yeah, it makes your heart beat a little faster.